Hey friends, welcome to today's video. My name's Stephanie, and today I have a couple of upcoming releases to share from Cracked Polish. Today we're going to be going over their Spirit of Rebellion collection, a special 10K polish to celebrate 10K followers on Instagram, and of course their new Jelly of the Month. I also want to give a big thank you to Cracked Polish for sponsoring this video. So while I am being paid to swatch and review these for you all, my thoughts and opinions are still 100% honest and my own, as they are with every video. And as always, I will save more of them for the end after comparisons. For now, let me just show you the swatches. Let's start off with the 10K shade, which is called Because of You, and this always makes me think of the Kelly Clarkson song. But this is described as a sheer light nude with large blue aurora pigments. Even though it's described as a light nude, I personally would have just called this an off-white kind of color, somewhere in between white and gray. It is just so light and ghostly and ethereal. Definitely very sheer on the first coat, but a really great formula otherwise. I think it builds up beautifully in 2 and especially 3 coats, though you are still going to see some visible nail line. The blue shimmer in this is especially glowy too. I feel like it's that shade of blue that freaks out the camera a little bit, but it looks so stunning in real life. And here is my full hand swatch wearing 2 coats with base and top coat. Again, it's definitely very sheer, especially in more natural lighting, but I don't know, I can't help but just love how ethereal it looks. Now moving on to the Spirit of Rebellion collection, the first polish we have is Seek to Disrupt, which is described as a dark hunter green with gold to red to orange shifting flakies and a copper to gold magnetic pigment. I was so surprised to see just how sheer this was on the first coat. I mean, you can see it is a bit patchy, definitely some strong bald spots throughout my nail, but it's surprisingly built up really well in just 2 coats. So I guess this is definitely a versatile polish where you could layer it as a topper if you wanted, but you can easily build it up on its own. I think if you look close enough, you could see a little hint of nail line, and that might be more obvious in the full hand swatch, especially in more natural lighting. But at least under my desk light, or especially in lower lighting, the visible nail line isn't that obvious. So here I'm wearing it unmagnetized on the left and with the velvet effect on the right, which I really loved how it looked, just having that strong pinky orange color contrast come through. It was just so pretty. So you can see that again here on my middle and ring finger, while I have the cat eye on my pointer and pinky. Then we have Artistic Expression, which is a deep blue with purple shifting pigments and holographic glitters. This was one of my favorites from the collection. I just love these moody, blurple kind of shades. This had a really great formula that was very full coverage, but not totally opaque or anything on the first coat. You can see I had a little bit of a bald spot near the left side of my nail, but because the shade is so dark, it was fully opaque in just 2 coats. As you can see, it is so sparkly. The holographic micro glitters in here just shine and twinkle so beautifully. And the shimmer is more of a duochrome, where it's kind of this aqua blue or cyan color head on, but in extreme light, you get more of that shift to purple. I think I would even say it goes to pink and even orange in very extreme angles. Like here in the full hand swatch, you can maybe see some of that at the very corners of my nail. So the shimmer is definitely really strong and super shifty, but even in lower lighting, you can tell it is so sparkly. Next we have Without a Cause, which is described as a raisin purple with a pink to gold magnetic shimmer. This was another favorite of mine. I just love any kind of berry raisin sort of color, and this one was so beautiful. As you can see, it has a little bit of a jelly kind of base, but it's very pigmented at the same time. So I got it fully opaque for me in 2 coats, though depending on your application, you might need a third. I was surprised surprised at how much I love this one because I usually don't care for magnetics without a little extra flaky in the background, but I did notice that this one does have this background shimmer that shifts to a more prominent red color in extreme light, so that was a nice detail. But yeah, I definitely am just a big fan of this color. It is so beautiful. No surprise, I also really loved it with the velvet effect, which again I'm wearing on my middle two fingers, and the cat eye effect on my pointer and pinky. The flash in this is just so beautiful. I was mesmerized. I imagine I'm gonna be so excited to wear this again in the fall. The one downside with this shade though is that I noticed it had a little bit of a funky smell that some blue polishes tend to have, so I thought that was a little strange and, you know, not my favorite part, but I'm still forgiving for the color. Then we have Nonconformity, which is a bright orange with pink reflective glitters and gold shimmers. Interestingly enough, there's no mention of the gold iridescent flakies in this, but they're definitely there. And I was surprised to see this one because it kind of looks like the outlier in the collection, just being so much brighter and lighter. The formula on this was really smooth. It definitely is very sheer, as I'm sure you can tell though, but similar to Seek to Disrupt, which is the very sheer green polish from earlier, I found that it built up surprisingly well in just 2 coats. Though I wouldn't call it 100% opaque, this one definitely has a little bit more of that squishy jelly kind of look, so you are still going to see some visible nail line, and obviously it's going to be even more noticeable in more natural lighting, which I'll show in a second. But I do think it is pretty obscured behind all of that glowy shimmer, which I ended up really liking. I love the pink and especially the shift to that brighter yellow. It just looks so peachy and beautiful for summer, also kind of giving summerween vibes, though I'm not sure if I love the flakies in this one. Up next we have Down with Authority, and this is simply described as a deep red with red shimmers, and that's definitely really accurate. So while it might be simple in its finish, it is still so incredibly beautiful. I'm always a sucker for a deep, sultry, sparkly red. This one had a really great formula that was so smooth and easy to apply, though not fully self-leveling or like even coverage. I think I would say this has a similar base to Without a Cause, where it's a little bit jelly leaning but still very, very pigmented. So because it is so dark, I got it fully opaque in 2 coats for my live swatch, but I noticed for my full hand swatch the 2 coats looked a little bit more sheer. Like if you look close enough you might be able to see a hint of nail line, so I imagine in maybe direct sunlight that would be even more obvious. I also am trying to grow out my nails again, so you know, if your nails are much shorter, I think the 2 coats is more than fine. And rounding out the collection, we have Independent Thinker, which is a bronze to rose gold with silver reflective glitters. I think I would say that this was the most opaque formula from the whole collection. As you can see, I got incredible coverage on the first coat alone, where it pretty much looks fully opaque, or at least you get the illusion that it is, considering how intense the shimmer is in this polish. So if you're in a pinch, you might be able to get away with this in 1 coat, but of course I'm still doing 2 to really build up the base color, which you can see is a little bit deeper and provides a bit more contrast to that shimmer and the reflective glitter. I still feel kind of torn on this shade, where I want to like it. I don't hate it as much as I thought that I would. Like, I personally wouldn't call this a prugly necessarily. It's definitely very unique though, not my usual taste. I think the reason I don't fully love it is because it kind of leans in that antique brassy sort of color that just usually isn't my favorite. But I don't know, there's something so pretty about the shimmer in this. The only other thing I didn't love is how you could see how textured the reflective glitters are in this. And lastly, the jelly of the month is called Tomahto, which is just described as a red jelly. I think I would say this has a pretty strong orange or maybe coral sort of undertone, so it definitely does look like a tomato red. Here under my desk lighting and even in natural light, I feel like it looks a little bit orangey, but sometimes depending on the lighting, it can lean a little bit pink or coral. So it's kind of a chameleon shade. And normally I'm not a big fan of orangey reds, but I'm just so forgiving of this one, I think because of the name. And I actually don't hate how this looks on me. I think it's a pretty flattering color, super beautiful and juicy. Not to mention it had an amazing formula. It self-leveled really beautifully, which I was very impressed by because, as you might know, I don't always have that experience with cracked jellies. So I was happy to see how workable this one was and how beautiful it looks built up in 2 or 3 coats. Getting into comparisons, we're starting with Because of You, and here's a quick look at it next to O-Type Star from the Randos collection. This has a similar matching blue shimmer, but the base in that is a much deeper gray purple sort of color. So when it comes to these lighter whites or off-whites, I thought a closer shade would be Mooncat's Head in the Clouds or even Holo Taco's Swan Song, but hopefully you can tell that those are a little bit brighter in their white bases. They're also a little bit more pigmented and crelly leaning. So Because of You is a bit more sheer and gray leaning, but the blue shimmer in that one I think glows the most. And lastly, for reference, here it is next to Castle of Cobwebs, which is a gray with a blue shimmer, but both the gray and shade of blue are a lot lighter than Because of You. Next, for Seek to Disrupt, I immediately thought of Mooncat's We're Back Witches from the Hocus Pocus 2 collaboration a few years ago. At least they looked a lot similar in my head, but once you see them side by side, and especially magnetized, they really don't compare. Then for artistic expression, I knew I had to see this next to Crisis Averted, which is pretty similar in its color description, but Crisis Averted is a bit more pigmented. It's also a little bit warmer or more plummy in its purple base, but I think the most obvious difference is how the shimmer and holographic sparkle just shines a lot more in artistic expression. Because the shimmer in that has such a strong purple kind of shift, I did also want to see this next to some other cracked purples, like Acidic Tears and Wooowww. The shimmer in Acidic Tears is purple head on though, instead of the more cyan kind of color in artistic expression, and as you can see, Wooowww is a little bit more of a blurple sort of metallic kind of color. I think in very specific angles or lighting it can kind of look similar to artistic expression, but head on you can definitely tell a difference. Next, for Without a Cause, I was immediately reminded of a couple of ILNP shades. Even though they aren't magnetics, it was really just the color that I thought was really close. First, I pulled out Bewitched, which has a purple kind of shimmer, but that's in a black base, so it's obviously going to be a lot darker. I think Dakota is definitely much closer to the color, being that berry, purpley pink, but that's still a little too dark. Next, for Nonconformity, I think the closest oranges from Cracked are Pushin Pop and Barefoot Beauty, though neither of them are quite close enough to be dupes by any means, but I do think color-wise Barefoot Beauty is a little bit closer, especially compared to Pushin Pop. Some other flaky oranges that I wanted to show it next to are ILNP's Carved and Holo Taco's Disco Inferno. Again, neither of which I would call dupes, but they are just a little bit closer finish-wise to Nonconformity, but color-wise there's a much stronger pinky coral sort of shimmer going on in Cracked, not to mention it's a lot more sheer. Then I remembered I still have my swatch stick of Cirque's Brightside, which was a previous Do Good polish. That's another sheer jelly orange kind of flaky bomb, but with more of a pink flaky instead of a pink shimmer, so kind of similar vibes, not exact dupes though. Next, for Down with Authority, I knew I had to show this next to Crimson Ecstasy, which was the dark red metallic from the collaboration with Ethereal. They might not look like dupes in the bottle because Down with Authority looks like it has a little bit of a gold kind of shimmer, but on the nail they're definitely very close and kind of hard to tell apart, so I don't think you would need both of these. Some other dark vampy reds I wanted to see this next to were Mooncat's Bottled Rage and ILNP's Sabrina. Both of those do have red shimmer, but they're in much darker bases. I mean, the Mooncat one has a black base and Sabrina is a very blackened red, so you can just see how much brighter Down with Authority looks. For Independent Thinker, I thought this was completely unique to my collection, but then I realized it was actually somewhat close to Mooncat's Kelp Kingdom, which is one of their dearly departed shades. That one is a magnetic, so it's not a one-to-one dupe, but they definitely have a very, very similar vibe if you're just applying Kelp Kingdom unmagnetized. I think it does have a darker, more noticeably olive green base though. And lastly, for Tomahto, I knew I had to show this next to Cirque's Poppy Jelly, which isn't described as a tomato red if I remember correctly, but it definitely has the very similar orangey coral undertone. I think maybe Poppy is a shade darker, but for all intents and purposes, I would call these dupes. So that wraps up my swatches and comparisons of Cracked's new Spirit of Rebellion collection, their special 10K polish, and their Jelly of the Month. And as always, I would love to hear your thoughts on these releases. Starting with the Spirit of Rebellion collection, I greatly appreciate that Monique is always giving us different vibes for the season. Like last month, she gave us the perfect neon rainbow kind of lineup, and this month is the complete 180 if you aren't feeling those brighter colors. As a seasonal wearer, I obviously am leaning more towards the last collection, but I am fully here for the vibes of this lineup. I think they are so fitting for the climate that we're in, and I just really love that about them. So, you know, even though they are very much out of my comfort zone for summer shades, I might actually end up wearing some of these darker polishes just because I really resonate with the names. And objectively speaking, they're great polishes as well, just what you come to expect with Cracked polish, but no surprise, I'm just gonna favor the 10K polish, being that light, airy shimmer, or of course the Jelly of the Month, which is what I'm wearing on my hand. It is just so bright and juicy, makes me so incredibly happy, especially considering I had a great experience with the formula for this one, because as I've mentioned before, the jelly formulas from Cracked can be a little hit or miss for me, but I was really impressed with this one and just hope to see more jellies from Cracked. Like, I still would love a full jelly collection just so they can build out their catalog a little bit faster than doing a once a month shade. But yeah, you'll have to let me know what you think of these. Which ones are you gravitating to? Are you even feeling this collection at all compared to last month's, which was so much brighter? If you are interested in any of these upcoming releases though, they are going to be launching on Friday, July 18th at 10 a.m. Eastern time. And as a reminder, I am an affiliate with Cracked Polish, so I will have my link and code in the description box down below. Using either of those gives me a small commission, which helps support me and my channel. So of course, a big thank you to all of you who do support me through that. But even if you don't plan on picking anything up, I hope that you still like the video, especially if you found my review or the comparisons helpful. And of course, make sure to let me know any and all thoughts you have down below so we can chat about it. But thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!